What is up, everybody? Good morning and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Marvel Rivals. Today we are going to be taking a look at another Loki gameplay by request. We are going to be looking at Harvey, who is on the team Mutants right now. They are a fantastic team in Marvel Rivals, so being able to see what a pro player does, how he handles these lobbies, will definitely be something interesting. So let's get right back into the replay and see what we have cooking. This channel is rapidly becoming a Loki spectating channel, and I'm honestly okay with it, but I do these things by request, so if you do have any characters you specifically want to see, maybe even any people from professional teams or professional VODs you want me to look at, if I do have access to them, I will definitely give those a look if you guys want. So let's switch our POV over to him, and we will be on attack first, and let's see what happens. They get poked a little bit off the start of the game, and he just gets a little bit of ult charge there, already at 15%, drops an offensive clone and starts beating up on the front line. You'll see him do a lot more offensive kind of gameplay in this. He drops another offensive clone and just starts trying to get a little bit more damage on the enemy team, backing up only when someone falls low, trusting his rocket to keep people topped off pretty well. They actually get a pick on the Namor right off the rip, so the enemy will be down a DPS. Drops another offensive clone, dropping his left shift in this hallway to keep anyone pushing into that hallway safe for a second, and then using his right click to reposition a clone where he can get a little bit of cleave damage on this tank and shoot into this hallway. They quickly take out the enemy team and are able to take this first point. I know this game is going to seem like a stomp, but it is actually pretty even once we kind of get going. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. Just waiting for the point to open these doors here. Goes around the left-hand side, sees Hela drop low, tries to get her topped off as the doors open for the payload. Drops a clone down there and uses his right click to place a clone at his feet. I did notice that this guy uses his right click to place clones a lot more than like get away. I think he's able to do that partially because the enemy team does not have any dive characters, so he's not able to feel super threatened. Just using his right click to make sure that his clones are in exactly the places that he wants, effectively giving him another charge of his E. But playing pretty far up here too for a support. Drops his left shift, turns into Luna on the enemy team, and most people would probably ult right away. They would just kind of transform and ult, but as you can see, we do have that timer on the right hand side of the screen that refreshes when you use an ult, so he's able to just play as Luna and, you know, do some healing, wait for some of the pressure to come in, and then once it does, pops ult, gives them even more stall time. The Eye of Agamotto comes in, and the enemy Storm ult comes in. He is able to actually reset his health, I think, by transforming back into Loki at a great time. Unfortunately, still taken out by the Storm in the end, but is rezzed by the Hela. Unfortunately, it's in a little bit of an awkward place, and his Magneto bails him out there by stepping in front of him. There is a lot of good team cohesion in this VOD, too. His rocket is very good at keeping people topped, so he can focus a little bit more on damage. He will have a very respectable amount of damage done at the end of this video. And his tank obviously has some good awareness there, sees the Loki getting res behind him, and knows he needs to step up so he doesn't die again. Getting right back onto the payload here. His Punisher ults, and he is going to try and stay safe. Drops his left shift to block any Namor damage, as well as the knockdown, it looks like. Able to defuse all of that Namor pressure. The Loki on the enemy team ults and copies Luna ult, it looks like, so they're not going to be able to kill anybody here, but still getting a good amount of distance on that payload coming down this hallway, focusing on making sure the Magneto is topped up, and keep on moving his clones a little bit further forward, playing a little bit behind his team, but not too far back. I definitely see a lot more Lokis that are playing a little bit more offensive in this style, where they are just kind of getting in the enemy's face and creating those clones so they can do more damage, because that's definitely a good job for Loki, especially because the enemy team here is doing a pretty healable amount of damage. The rocket is able to keep everyone at a comfortable amount of health, and he's able to get a little bit more offensive pressure. So really just chasing the enemy off of point here. Goes for the little backstab on the Magneto there. If you didn't know, Loki has a different attack animation and does more damage if you melee someone in the back, so it's going to be very, very situational, but if you want to use that, go for it. Rounding this corner, coming down one of the final stretches here, the enemy is just kind of opting to wait, back up, just kind of get a full reset before they push this cart. His Magneto is doing a great job just posturing up, creating that space for the cart, and his Hela is going for a little bit of a flank there. They are getting a lot more damage out of the enemy team because of this Punisher Bucky with the rocket. Unfortunately, his Punisher is taken out by the Hawkeye, and just like that, the enemy team starts to go on the offensive. They know they're down to DPS, but he pushes back forward a little bit, sees the Doctor Strange going for high ground, knows the ult is coming, pops his ult to be unstoppable and try and heal people through it, and they're able to reverse a lot of this pressure, even though they got that pick off of the rip. Unfortunately, his Bucky is still taken out, and his Magneto postures in front of him so he can get away a little bit easier. Just enough time so that he can snap and switch places with his clone that he still has in the back over there. And just playing around this corner, waiting for the rest of his team to come back, keeping this Magneto topped off and getting a little bit of poke damage on the enemy team. Unfortunately, is taken out by a headshot, a rogue headshot by the Hawkeye through that little crack right there. That was kind of a pretty nice shot, But his Punisher does ult here, so as well as his rocket and his Magneto, so Punisher's able to stay safe thanks to that Magneto ult. Unfortunately, is taken out by the enemy Magneto, but they still get 3 and are able to get right back onto this cart and keep the push going. Polish off the Doctor Strange and the Loki there and stagger the enemy team pretty heavily going into this last little room. This room definitely can be a little bit sketchy, so making sure that we're pushing towards the spawn. Drops a clone up here, drops a clone right on the Hawkeye as well, getting in his face, making sure he's getting those triple clone damage bursts on him. Getting a lot of pressure on him, making him feel it. And his Storm opts to ult is able to actually take out the Hawkeye, so that takes out a lot of their damage, a lot of their pick potential. He's able to feel a little bit more safe and able to play on the point here. Starts throwing some heals up with Storm, ults Luna. Uses her ult just to make sure his team stays safe, but the enemy Luna ults as well, so it's going to be a wet noodle fight for the next 5 or so seconds. His ult will fade first as well. His Hela gets a nice pick on the Hawkeye again right as he comes back, and the enemy Luna ult fades. The enemy Loki ults, and he actually Luna ults again, so they're not able to take out pretty much anyone from the enemy team and are just forced to back up down this hallway. Still keeping more offensive clones as well, so making sure that the clones are still kind of in between him and the enemy. Using his right click to make sure that clones are in a better position, getting his easy shots on his allies. Careful not to get domed by the Hawkeye there, and his Magneto and his Punisher pretty much clean up the whole enemy team. And they're able to usher in this payload with relative ease and take the first round with a score of 3-0. So this guy definitely plays Loki more offensive. He's just kind of jumping around, especially when there's no dive pressure. I don't know if he would play the same way. I'll try and find a replay that has a little bit more of a dive comp or something like that to see if he still plays closer to the tanks. I think that would be kind of interesting to see. But right now we're just setting up on defense. These two clones, I feel like this is a pretty standard place to put these. And then he also knocks down this building, so he has a nice sight line down this hallway. Something I definitely don't see people do. A lot of teams on attack are able to just kind of use that whole building as cover and flank all the way around left, or right in this case. Here's the portal behind him, immediately drops to low ground. Has a lot of faith in this rocket. I would have popped my left shift there, just like panic to top off, but his rocket is able to heal him up without much difficulty. Sees that there's no way for him to get back on high ground, so just plays this little cubby here, throwing some heals around, going inside, helping his Magneto finish off this other Magneto. The infinite ammo comes out from the rocket, so they should have a little bit of damage. Goes for high ground here, even though he's in the full sight line of the enemy team, but dropping clones so that he is able to get some good splash damage on the enemy, using his right click and his E to make that happen. Takes the Hawkeye low, and the Magneto is able to finish him off. Rocket is able to stay safe from the Spider-Man, and they are able to defuse this push with a little bit more. It's not clean, but it's definitely a way to defuse it. So they're all playing this room, standing in his green, trying to make sure that they are getting healed. The enemy Loki ends up behind him, and he actually ults Rocket here, making the damage boost, throwing out the res, making sure if anyone dies, they are rezzed in this next 7 seconds or so. His team is able to kind of pop off, and they just hold this point. I don't really know how. Again, it was really, really messy, but he places clones in a lot of good sight lines there, does a little bit of damage, helps out his team, and gets them over the hump with that rocket ult, healing them with the insurance on the res beacon. That might be the first time that I've actually heard, or seen, I should say, a rocket be Loki copied. I don't think a whole lot of Lokis are interested in copying rocket, but it's kind of cool. They do have access to all of their ults right now. They have 5 ults to the enemy's 2, so they should be able to fend off at least one more push here, creating a little bit more space. His Hela is taken out by the other one, using his right click to get another clone to help out this Magneto, make sure he's getting some good healing numbers there. Pops his left shift as Spider-Man gets on him to stay safe, and is able to clip him nice and free in the air there. Infinite ammo on the Punisher doing some work, stalling the enemy team around this corner. His Punisher does ult, so he creates a clone right at his feet to make sure he's getting maximum healing into this ult, because that is going to be a powerful, powerful cooldown. Unfortunately, Punisher dies in the reload animation, and he is not able to keep him alive. But still dropping his clones a little bit more offensively here. Dropping his left shift as the Spider-Man goes in, takes him out again. Nice and cheeky air kill there. Cloak and Dagger on the enemy team goes on to point, and he backs up into this little cubby to keep himself safe. Unfortunately, not able to save the storm there. Uses the right click to drop a clone at his feet. Still able to fire over this little half wall in front of him, making sure that he is not just solo targeting this Magneto with his auto attacks. Unfortunately, Cloak and Dagger copies and is not able to even get his ult off. The Hela on the enemy team goes massive, and he is once again rezzed in a little bit of a sticky situation thanks to that Hela Loki team up. But able to get out of there pretty easily, and the enemy does take that first point. And they have just about 3 minutes on the clock. Uses his left shift defensively to make sure that Hela does not fall there. Sees her walking over one of his clones and does that prematurely. Or I guess you should say reactionary is probably a better way to say that. But has 2 clones, still playing kind of behind them, but repositioning them as needed to make sure that when he needs to top somebody off, he has a full clip and he's able to drop a clone, get at least a double heal on these people, but is taken out by Spider-Man. And the other team is able to get pretty much halfway through this payload escort. He is unfortunately revived again in a little bit of an interesting situation. Pops his left shift, pops a clone, swaps places with it, gets out of there, is miraculously able to survive. That is definitely I thought this was kind of interesting when I was watching the replay for the first time, that he just gets rezzed a few times, and it's definitely not in the position that you want to be. It does res you on the place that you died, not the place that the Hela is as well. So the Cloak and Dagger on the enemy team is taken out by his Magneto ult. Left shifts to reduce the damage coming from the Spider-Man ult, but is uppercutted. And thank God we have Hela, because we are rezzed yet again. Able to keep healing this Magneto, giving him a little bit more pressure, backing up for the Doctor Strange ult, and making sure that he is playing behind his clones as well. Dropping one closer on point. His Storm ults just to clean up the Hawkeye there, stagger him a little bit. And as his team pushes into this hallway, he follows suit, able to take out the Spider-Man, and has one clone and himself pumping heals into this Magneto, keeping him pretty healthy. Gets damage amps, drops behind this wall, doesn't want to risk taking any damage. So good play of line of sight there. Drops his left shift as he drops a little bit low, and he does hear the Hela ult from the enemy team come out, so he Cloak and Dagger ults beforehand on point, so Magneto can just stay on point, make sure that he is staying topped up. Shrouds his team so they can back up and avoid a little bit more damage. That stalls the point for a few seconds, since the enemy team is just under 30 seconds left to make this cap. Gets run down by the Strange here, pops his left shift to stay alive. And his Hela ults, they don't have any defensive ults on the enemy team quite yet. The Cloak and Dagger ults, almost able to take somebody out, but the Hela does take out Loki there. And his Magneto goes kind of crazy and gets another double kill. And just like that, they are going to usher in overtime. and get a victory of this game with a score of 3-1. So I don't think he does anything that's too out of kind of character for Loki, but he definitely does a good job of playing more offensively, using his clones effectively, making sure that when he needs to top off a tank, he's not using half of his clip and then dropping a clone, then using the other half of his clip. Making sure that he's getting a lot more value out of those clones, both on the damage front and the healing front, and playing behind them when he's on defense to stay a little bit safer. As you can see, he goes 21, 5, and 20, does a ton of damage as well, and a ton of healing, so that's definitely something you want to think about on Loki. If you're doing no damage, if you're doing no healing, definitely try and balance that out a little bit. And he only has one tank, so this is all very, very effective healing. He's not just blasting into a Hulk and a Strange or something like that, just topping them off over and over again. So definitely keep that in mind. If there's any characters you want me to do a spectating video on, please don't hesitate to leave a comment below. Like the video if you liked it, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.